Welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at an article called A Pitch Black Day, or Why Feeling Like Shit is Part of Life.
Wow.
It's quite a title.
Yeah.
I know. And it really caught my eye because, honestly, the title alone is a mood. It was published on October 23rd on a website called almali.org.
Okay.
What do you make of that name?
Oh, no, it sounds kind of,
Almali.
yeah, it's giving me some kind of happy vibes, like almost spiritual or something.
Yeah, it's like a very positive kind of word, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's because almali.org is all about joy and happiness. And get this, the author, Catherine, is the founder of this organization. So she's basically like a happiness guru.
Okay.
So why is she writing about feeling like,
That is interesting. You'd think an article like that would be from somebody who maybe, studies the darker side of human nature, not somebody who's built a whole organization around joy.
Exactly. And she even admits in the article that she almost didn't publish it
Oh, wow.
because she was worried people wouldn't understand, which I think makes the whole thing even more raw and honest.
Yeah.
It's like she's letting us peek behind the curtain of her happiness expert persona.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, I struggle too.
Yeah, that hesitation is really telling, isn't it? It speaks to how much pressure we all feel to always present this really positive front.
Yeah.
Even when on the inside, we're just falling apart.
All the time.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you scrolled through social media
Oh my God.
and felt like everybody else has their life together while you're over here just struggling to keep your head above water?
All the time. It's like everyone's drinking the positivity Kool-Aid except me.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I love about Catherine's piece.
Yeah.
It's just this reminder that even happiness gurus have those days where they just want to crawl under a rock and, hide from the world.
Right.
And she even quotes a friend in here saying, can't even have a dick day to myself.
Oh my God.
I laughed out loud when I read that.
I love that.
Because it's so relatable. We all need those dick days
Yeah.
sometimes.
Right.
Absolutely. And trying to force ourselves to be positive all the time can actually backfire.
Yeah.
There's actually a term for this. Toxic positivity.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's this idea that we should always be cheerful and optimistic no matter what.
Right.
But thinking that way can actually prevent us from processing our difficult emotions in a healthy way.
Right.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Okay.
Eventually it's going to pop up
Yeah.
and probably hit you in the face.
Right. And maybe even harder than if you had just let it float on the surface.
Exactly.
So what she's saying is these bad vibes days are totally normal.
Yeah.
Like it's not a sign of weakness or
Yeah.
failure.
It's part of being human.
Okay.
It's part of the human experience.
Yeah.
And in fact, Catherine goes a step further.
Okay.
And she touches on this really interesting concept. The idea that suffering is like baked into life itself.
Whoa.
Think about it. From the moment we're born, we are aware on some level that we're going to die.
And that awareness of our own mortality can actually be a source of anxiety. A kind of background hum of unease that never really goes away.
Okay, now we're getting deep.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like, even on the happiest days, there's always that little shadow lurking in the corner, reminding us that nothing lasts forever.
Exactly. And Catherine doesn't shy away from that.
Okay.
In fact, she embraces it. She describes these periods she calls pitch black weeks,
Okay.
where all of the usual coping mechanisms, meditation, gratitude, journaling, even exercise,
Right.
just don't seem to work.
And this is coming from someone who literally promotes these practices as part of her work.
Right.
So what's going on there?
Yeah.
Why do those things stop working when we really need them?
Well, it all comes down to how our brains work under stress. Imagine your brain has a limited amount of energy, like a battery. Right? And all of those coping mechanisms, they require energy to use. When you're going through a pitch black week, like a period of intense emotional distress, your brain is basically running on fumes. It's in survival mode. Does that make sense?
So trying to meditate or exercise is like asking your phone to run a high-powered app
Yes.
when the battery's at 1%.
Exactly. Your phone is probably going to crash, right?
Yeah.
Well, your brain can kind of crash too.
Okay.
You might feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and even more incapable of dealing with your emotions.
Gotcha.
And that's why those go-to coping mechanisms, the things that normally help us stay afloat,
Right.
they can suddenly feel like burdens instead of lifelines.
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
It's like everything I thought I knew about self-care is being turned upside down.
Well, not exactly.
Right.
Those tools are still valuable. But it's important to recognize their limitations.
Okay.
Catherine's article reminds us that sometimes what we need more than anything else is to acknowledge that we're struggling.
Right.
And to reach out for support.
Which brings us to like the heart of Catherine's message, right?
Yes.
This importance of human connection in overcoming those pitch black days. Mm-hmm. It's like, instead of trying to fix ourselves, we need to lean on each other.
Yes, and it's not just about leaning on others for emotional support either. Yep. It's about recognizing that we are all interconnected. Mm-hmm. We're not meant to go through life alone.
Okay.
It's a shift from a mindset of self-reliance to one of interdependence.
And she really hammers that home in a powerful way at the end.
Yeah.
Remember the part where she talks about how grateful she is for her community?
Yeah.
She even says, screw depending on oneself.
Wow.
It's like she's giving us permission to let go of that I can do it all myself attitude and embrace vulnerability.
And that vulnerability is key because when we let ourselves be seen, truly seen by others, we create space for genuine connection. And those connections in turn become a source of strength and resilience, helping us navigate those inevitable pitch black days with a little more grace and a lot less loneliness.
A lot less loneliness. Yeah. That's really beautiful.
It is.
Okay, I'm still processing everything we just talked about. This whole idea of connection being more important than self-reliance during tough times.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering, like, why is it so hard for us to reach out for help in the first place? You know, why do we feel like we have to go it alone?
That's a great question. And it actually gets to the heart of some pretty deep-seated cultural beliefs.
Okay.
Think about the messages we're constantly bombarded with. Be strong. Don't be a burden. Success is a solo journey.
Right.
It's almost like we're conditioned to believe that needing help is a sign of weakness.
Yeah, it's like that whole pick yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, right?
Exactly.
But if we're wired for connection like we talked about earlier, why is this individualistic mindset so prevalent, especially in Western cultures?
Well, there are a lot of historical and sociological factors at play.
Okay.
You know, the rise of individualism can be traced back to the Enlightenment with its emphasis on reason autonomy and self-determination. And then you have the American dream, this idea that anyone can achieve success through hard work and determination.
Right.
While these ideals have their merits, they've also created a culture that often glorifies self-reliance to the point where asking for help can feel like admitting defeat.
So it's not just about personal choice. It's about these larger societal forces that shape our beliefs about vulnerability and interdependence.
Right.
But here's something I'm curious about.
Yeah.
If connection is so essential for our well-being, why does modern life often feel so isolating? I mean, we're more connected than ever through technology.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always translate into meaningful relationships, does it?
That's a really important point. Technology has created this illusion of connection.
Right.
But it's often superficial.
Right.
We might have hundreds of Facebook friends or Instagram followers, but how many of those people would we actually call in a crisis?
Yeah, good point.
And on the flip side, all that screen time can actually take away from face-to-face interactions, which are crucial for building those deep, supportive relationships that we need.
It's like being at a party full of people.
Yeah.
But still feeling completely alone.
Exactly. And that sense of loneliness can be incredibly damaging to both our mental and physical health. It can lead to increased anxiety, depression, and even weaken our immune system.
Wow. It's amazing how something as simple as feeling connected can have such a profound impact on our overall well-being.
It really highlights how fundamental this need for connection is.
Yeah.
Remember when we talked about how our brains are wired for it?
Yeah.
Well, when that need isn't met, it triggers a stress response in our bodies.
Okay.
Like a warning signal that something's wrong.
It's like our bodies are saying, hey, we're social creatures. We need to be around other humans to thrive.
Exactly. And that's why Catherine's message about the importance of human connection is so vital, especially in today's world. It's a reminder that we need to prioritize those real-life relationships.
Yeah.
The ones where we can be vulnerable, share our struggles, and receive the support we need to navigate life's challenges.
It's not about just liking someone's post on social media.
Right.
But showing up for them in a meaningful way.
Precisely. It's about creating spaces where we can be authentically ourselves, flaws and all, and know that we're accepted and supported even on our darkest days.
Okay, so we've established that connection is crucial, especially during those pitch black days.
Yeah.
But where do we go from here? How do we actually cultivate those kind of deep, supportive relationships in a world that often feels so isolating?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
I know.
And while there's no easy answer, I think Catherine gives us some clues.
Okay.
Remember how she talks about her gratitude for her community?
Yeah.
Well, I think that gratitude is a powerful starting point.
You mean like being grateful for the people we already have in our lives?
Yeah. Yes, but it goes beyond just acknowledging their presence.
Okay.
It's about actively appreciating their unique qualities, their quirks, their flaws.
Yeah.
Even the things that sometimes annoy us.
Right.
It's about recognizing the value they bring to our lives.
Okay.
And expressing that appreciation in meaningful ways.
So instead of focusing on what's missing,
Yeah.
we shift our attention to what we already have.
Exactly.
It's like changing the lens through which we view our relationship.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can make a huge difference.
Look.
When we approach our relationships with gratitude, it creates a positive feedback loop.
Right.
The more we appreciate others, the more we feel appreciated in return, and the stronger those bonds become.
It's like a virtuous cycle of connection.
Yes.
But what about those of us who feel like we don't have that kind of supportive community? Where do we even start?
That's a valid concern, and it's
Right.
important to acknowledge that building genuine connections takes time and effort.
Right.
It's not something that happens overnight. But there are things we can do to start cultivating those connections.
Like what? Give me some practical tips.
Well, first, it's important to be open to connection. Sometimes we build walls around ourselves without even realizing it. So start by asking yourself, am I truly open to letting people in?
Okay.
Am I putting myself out there even in small ways?
So it's about being receptive to those little moments of connection that happen throughout the day.
Yes.
Like chatting with the barista at the coffee shop or, striking up a conversation with someone at the gym.
Exactly. Those seemingly insignificant interactions can actually be the seeds of deeper connections.
Okay.
And then it's about nurturing those seeds. Maybe you exchange numbers with the person from the gym and suggest grabbing coffee sometime.
Okay.
Or maybe you simply make an effort to remember the barista's name
Right.
and ask them about their day next time you see them.
It's like taking those small moments of connection and turning them into something more intentional.
Right. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes the most meaningful connections start with the simplest gestures.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I'm still struggling with.
Okay.
What if I'm the one who's struggling?
How
do I reach out for help when I feel like I'm drowning in those pitch black days?
That's a really brave question and one that so many people struggle with.
Yeah.
Remember how Catherine talked about her own hesitation to share her vulnerability?
Yeah.
Well, that's something we all face to some degree.
Right.
There's this fear of judgment, of being seen as weak or needy.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. It's like this voice in my head saying, you should be able to handle this on your own. Don't burden other people with your problems.
But here's the thing. That voice is lying to you.
Yeah.
Remember what we talked about earlier? We are wired for connection.
Yeah.
We are not meant to go through life alone.
Right.
And asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
Yeah.
It takes courage to admit that we need support, to let go of the need to be self-sufficient and allow others to care for us.
Okay, that makes sense logically.
Yeah.
But emotionally, it still feels scary.
I understand.
Like, how do I actually reach out? What do I say?
Start by identifying who in your life you feel safe with, someone who you trust and who has shown you kindness in the past.
Okay.
It could be a friend, family member, therapist, or even a support group.
Right.
And you don't have to have a perfectly crafted speech prepared.
Right.
Sometimes just saying, hey, I'm struggling right now. Can we talk? Is enough.
And what if they don't respond the way I hope they will? What if they brush me off or tell me to just snap out of it?
That's a valid fear, and unfortunately, it can happen.
Yeah.
Not everyone is equipped to provide the kind of support we need.
Okay.
But remember, you're not asking them to fix your problems.
Right.
You're simply asking for their presence, for their willingness to listen without judgment.
And if they're not able to provide that, it's okay to seek support elsewhere.
Exactly. It might take some trial and error to find the people who can truly hold space for you in your darkness.
Yeah.
But those people are out there, I promise you.
This has been incredibly insightful, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface. Is there anything else we should consider when it comes to cultivating these kinds of deep, supportive relationships?
There's so much more we could explore, but I think for now the most important thing is to remember that connection is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's not a destination we arrive at, but rather a journey we embark on. One filled with ups and downs, joys and sorrows, and moments of profound connection that remind us we're not alone in this crazy, beautiful thing called life.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think it's time we move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, as we've been talking about Catherine's article and this whole idea of human connection, I've been thinking about a quote I read once. The cure for anything is salt water, sweat tears, or the sea. It feels relevant here, don't you think? Like we've been talking about the tears part, you know?
Yeah.
The letting ourselves be vulnerable and reaching out for support.
That's a beautiful quote. And you're right, it perfectly captures the essence of what we've been exploring.
Yeah.
The tears represent those moments of raw honesty, the willingness to let our guard down and share our struggles.
Right.
And the sea, well, I think that represents connection.
Yeah.
That vast, expansive energy that surrounds us and holds us even when we feel lost and alone.
I love that. It's like, even in our darkest moments, we're not truly isolated.
Yeah.
We're part of something bigger than ourselves, something that connects us all.
Exactly. And that brings me to another point that Catherine touches on in her article.
Okay.
The importance of believing in something greater than yourself. She doesn't necessarily define what that something is,
right?
But I think it speaks to the idea of finding meaning and purpose beyond our individual experiences.
So it's not just about connecting with other people, but also connecting with something larger than ourselves.
Yes.
Whether it's nature or spirituality or even a cause we believe in.
Right. It's about finding that sense of belonging, of being part of something that transcends our individual worries and fears.
Right.
And that can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
Especially during those pitch black days when we feel lost and disconnected.
It's like having an anchor that keeps us grounded when the storms of life threaten to sweep us away.
Exactly. And I think that's what Catherine is ultimately getting at in her article.
Okay.
The idea that even in the midst of darkness, there's always hope. There's always the possibility of connection, of finding solace in the kind eyes of another living being.
Yeah.
Of remembering that we're not alone in this journey.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
yeah,
what's the one message you want our listeners to take away with them?
I want them to remember that connection is a choice. It's a choice we make every day in big and small ways. It's the choice to put down our phones and look someone in the eye. It's the choice to listen with our hearts without judgment. It's the choice to offer a helping hand, even when it's inconvenient. And it's the choice to believe that even in the darkest of times, we are never truly alone.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
To our listeners, remember, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep shining your light. Until next time, take care.